Every galaxy has its legends. But none begin with a bartender polishing a glass while a human rewrites drinking history. What you're about to read isn't just a contest. It's a collision of biology, ego, and distilled ethanol on an interstellar scale. You know what gets under my scales? These newcomers who think they know how to run a bar. Hey, I've been mixing drinks at the Nova's Edge for 30 cycles, back when Proxima Station was nothing but a rusty hub of questionable reputation, named Zarn Vox, and my forearms can outpour any fancy automated dispenser they've got in those shiny corporate establishments. Tonight's special, though. You can smell it in the recycled air, see it in the way every species is huddled around their tables, antennae twitching and mandibles clicking. The annual Proxima Drinking Championship brings out all sorts. From the silicon-based Gorgons who can down liquid nitrogen like it's nothing to those gaseous Zephyrians who absorb their drinks through specialized membranes. Zarn. Another round of plasma bursts for the table in the corner that's near Akel, my newest server. Poor thing's third eye is already spinning from stress. The place is packed tighter than a cargo hold during a meteor storm. I survey my domain from behind the polished metal bar, all three of my primary eyes taking in the scene, while my secondary pair keeps watch on the drinks I'm mixing. The Nova's Edge isn't what you'd call fancy. The wall still shows scorch marks from that infamous brawl 5 cycles ago when a Martian trader insisted they could outdrink a Jovian heavyweight. But it's got character, just like its clientele. Speaking of which, there's Dravok at their usual table, 7-foot-tall frame, lounging with the casual arrogance of an undefeated champion. Their scales shimmer under the purple mood lighting, and that infamous third liver of theirs is probably already preparing for tonight's competition. The betting pool this year is bigger than ever. The hollow boards floating above the bar display the odds, numbers shifting as credits pour in from across 3 solar systems. My maintenance bot, Spark, can barely keep up with cleaning the tables as more patrons squeeze in. Places are filling up fast. Boss Nirakel whispers, her crystalline exoskeleton catching the light. And you won't believe who just signed up for the competition. I'm about to ask who, when the station's artificial gravity hiccups. Just a tiny flutter that sends ripples through everyone's drinks. The regulars don't even notice anymore, but I catch a few tourists grabbing their tables for support. That's Proxima Station for you, always keeping you on your toes, or tentacles, or hover pads, depending on your species. The air recyclers hum their familiar tune as I polish a glass with my lower right hand, mix a nebula twist with my upper pair, and use my lower left to tap through the competition roster on my data pad. And that's when I see it, the name that's causing every alien in the bar to buzz with excitement or scoff in disbelief. A human has entered the competition. This should be interesting. Dravok rose from their table, towering over the crowd. Their bioluminescent patches pulsed with that particular shade of green that meant trouble was brewing. So they rumbled, voice carrying through the bar like a small sonic boom. The mammals think they can handle real drinks when the human stood near the entrance, and I got my first good look at her. Juno Harker wasn't what anyone expected. No bulging muscles or augmented liver systems visible, just average height. Short, copper-colored hair, wearing a standard station maintenance uniform with Harker J printed on the chest. Real drinks, she said, raising an eyebrow. Last I checked, your famous stellar crusher is just fermented algae with fancy lighting effects. The crowd went silent. Even the Zephyrians stopped their atmospheric whistling. Nobody, and I mean nobody, mocked Dravok's drink preferences. Nirakel muttered to my server, "Get ready to activate the shield barriers." But Dravok surprised me. Instead of raging, they laughed, a sound like grinding asteroids. You have spirit, tiny human. Let's make this interesting. Dravok slammed 4 credit chips onto my bar, each one worth more than I make in a month. I challenge you formally, the Proxima Championship rules. Winner takes the pot, and the loser. They grinned, showing 4 rows of metallic teeth. The loser works the waste recycling sector for a full cycle. The betting boards exploded with activity. Odds shifted wildly, 100 to 1 against the human, then 50 to 1 as some brave souls put credits on the underdog. My datapad pinged continuously with incoming wagers. "Hold up," Juno said, approaching the bar. "Rules first. I've heard stories about this competition." I cleared my throat, activating the official announcement protocols. The Proxima Drinking Championship follows ancient traditions, modified for multi-species participation. I gestured to the display screen behind me. 10 rounds. Each competitor drinks the same volume, but substances are chosen by alternating participants. All selections must be legal and survivable by both species. "Survivable is relative," someone in the crowd shouted, triggering nervous laughter. "Monitoring chips will be attached," I continued, pulling out the medical sensors. "Vital signs must remain within 80% of baseline. 3 judges verify each round. No metabolic accelerants, no artificial processing organs, and absolutely no quantum probability manipulation." Juno nodded, then pulled out her own credit chips. "I'm in. But I want to add one condition." Dravok's bioluminescence flickered with curiosity. "Speak." "When I win," Juno emphasized the when with a smirk, "you have to add Earth drinks to your regular menu. Real ones, not that synthesized stuff." "And when you lose," Dravok countered, "you'll clean recycling tanks and admit that humans are the weakest drinkers in 5 parsecs." They sealed the deal with the traditional gesture, Dravok extending their central sensory appendage, while Juno offered a handshake. The crowd cheered as appendages met hand. Nirakel rushed over to help me set up the competition area. "Boss," she whispered, third eye spinning wildly. "That human hasn't even asked what Dravok's species can drink. How can she possibly—" I shushed her with a wave of my upper right hand, while my other arms prepared the first round of glasses. In 30 cycles of bartending, I'd learned one crucial thing. Never underestimate any species, especially humans. They had this particular glint in their eyes when they knew something you didn't, and right now, Juno Harker's eyes were practically sparkling. "Round 1, I announced, my voice carrying through the bar's announcement system. "Champions, take your positions." The crowd pressed closer, credits changed hands, and the air grew thick with anticipation. This wasn't going to be just another drinking contest. This was going to be legendary. The competition area hummed with atmospheric regulators working overtime to handle the crowd's collective body heat. I set up the first round with practiced precision, all 4 of my arms moving in perfect harmony as I prepared the opening drinks. As challenger, Dravok chooses first, I announced, watching their bioluminescent patches pulse with smug confidence. "Let's start with a classic neutron splash," they declared. The crowd murmured appreciatively. Neutron splash wasn't just a drink. It was liquid radiation, carefully controlled to create a pleasant buzz for energy-based life forms while being barely tolerable for carbon-based creatures. I poured 2 measures, the liquid glowing an eerie blue. Juno eyed her glass curiously. "Interesting choice. Radioactive cocktail for round 1. Scared, human Dravok's scales rippled with amusement. "Nah, just thinking it's a bit basic." Juno lifted her glass, examining the swirling patterns. "We use this stuff to power our backup generators." The crowd buzzed with laughter. but I noticed several patrons adjusting their bets. Juno's casual confidence was making them nervous. 3, 2, 1, drink, I commanded. They downed their glasses simultaneously. Dravok finished with their usual flourish, but all eyes were on Juno. She set her glass down gently, smiled, and said, "Tastes like blue raspberry." "Round 2, I announced quickly, before Dravok's confusion could turn to anger. Juno Harker's choice. "Good old-fashioned tequila," she said, eyes twinkling. "The real stuff from Earth cacti." Now it was Dravok's turn to look uncertain. "Earth plant poison." "That's your choice." Scared Juno mimicked their earlier tone perfectly. The tequila went down. Dravok's scales turned slightly purple, their species equivalent of a grimace. "Tastes like engine cleaner." "That's how you know it's good," Juno winked. Rounds 3 and 4 went by in a blur. Dravok chose gaseous glacier, a drink that had to be inhaled rather than swallowed. Juno countered with vodka, drawing groans from the alien crowd who'd heard horror stories about Earth's grain alcohol. By round 5, something had changed in the room. The betting odds had shifted to 10 to 1, and the crowd's attitude was transforming from amusement to astonishment. "Quantum quencher," Dravok declared for round 6, their voice slightly less steady. The drink shifted between solid, liquid, and gas states randomly. Juno handled it like she was drinking water. "Not bad. Reminds me of Jell-O shots in college." Dravok's third liver was clearly working overtime. Their bioluminescent patches were starting to flicker erratically. You should be unconscious by now." "Should I?" Juno stretched casually. "Hey, Zarn, what's the record for longest Proxima championship?" 8 rounds, I answered, all 3 primary eyes fixed on her vital signs monitor. Somehow she was still at 95% of baseline. "Let's break it then," she grinned. "Round 7 whiskey, aged 12 years in oak barrels." Dravok swayed slightly. "Oak? Your species ages alcohol in tree carcasses. Adds flavor," Juno shrugged. "Plus it's relatively mild compared to that plasma burst you hit me with in round 3. The crowd had split into factions now. The regulars were cheering for Dravok out of loyalty, but a growing number of patrons were watching Juno with something approaching reverence. Round 8 brought Dravok's specialty, Supernova Sizzler, a drink that actually created a miniature fusion reaction in the stomach. Juno burped, and a small plasma ball escaped her lips, drawing shocked gasps and appreciative applause. "My turn," Juno said, now standing straighter than Dravok. "Something gentle for round 9. Rum. Nothing gentle about Earth drinks." Dravok slurred slightly, their universal translator struggling to keep up with their deteriorating speech. "You humans. You're not right in the head. What planet produces so many toxic substances and thinks, yes, let's drink this?" "A fun one," Juno replied, raising her glass. "To Earth, where even our plants try to get us drunk." The crowd roared. The betting boards were chaos. Dravok's scales had lost their luster, and their third liver's bioluminescent indicator was flashing warning signals. I checked the vital signs monitor. Dravok was barely maintaining the 80% minimum threshold. Juno, still at 92%. "Final round approaches," I announced. My voice carried over the now raucous crowd. "Champion, Dravok, your choice. Choose wisely." Dravok straightened up, drawing on their last reserves. Their voice came out as a determined growl. Time for the legendary galactic gravedigger. The bar went silent. Even I felt my scales tighten. The gravedigger wasn't just a drink. It was a rite of passage, a near-lethal combination of substances that existed in a quantum superposition until consumed. Juno just nodded appreciatively. "Bring it on." But first, she raised her voice to address the crowd. "Anyone want to adjust their bets? Last chance." The betting boards erupted one final time. The odds were now even. As I prepared the gravedigger with all four arms trembling slightly, I realized we weren't just watching a drinking contest anymore. We were watching history being made one impossible drink at a time. The galactic gravedigger shimmered in its specialized containment glasses, shifting through colors that shouldn't exist in our dimension. I activated the safety shields around the competition area, standard procedure for this particular drink. "Last round," I announced, my voice slightly tense. "Vital signs check required." Dravok swayed as the medical scanner passed over them. Their third liver was operating at 183% capacity, technically within safety limits, but only just. Their scales had dulled to an alarming shade of gray. Juno, on the other hand. I blinked all 5 eyes in succession, then checked the scanner again. "Problem?" she asked innocently. "Your readings?" I managed. "They're odd. Your body appears to be processing the alcohol as fuel." The bar erupted in confused murmurs. Dravok's head appendages twitched. "Impossible. No species can metabolize these combinations efficiently. My third liver." "Oh yeah, about that." Juno grinned. "Fun fact about humans, we've got this enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase. Pretty basic stuff, really. Been processing alcohol since before we invented the wheel. But the quantum quencher, the plasma burst, the supernova sizzler," Dravok's translator squeaked with indignation. "Look," Juno leaned forward, speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Humans. We come from a planet where anything that could ferment did ferment. We ate fruit that naturally turned to alcohol just to get calories. We drink coffee that's literally bean poison. We learned to produce ethanol before we figured out written language." The betting boards suddenly froze as this information sank in. Nira Kell's third eye was spinning so fast, it looked like it might launch into orbit. "You mean?" Dravok's voice was barely a whisper. "All those earth drinks are what we give to teenagers at family gatherings." "Yeah," Juno shrugged. "Well, except the tequila. That one's still pretty spicy." Dravok slumped onto their drinking stool. "The great champion, defeated by evolved poison eaters." "Now, hold on." Juno raised her hand. "Contest isn't over yet, and I've got a confession to make, too." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small silver flask. "Been taking sips of this between rounds." The crowd gasped. I quickly checked the rulebooks floating on my datapad. Additional consumption between rounds is not mentioned in the regulations. "Water," Juno said, sliding the flask across the bar to me. "Just plain old H2O. Best hangover prevention in the galaxy." I analyzed the flask's contents. Pure dihydrogen monoxide. The crowd pressed closer as my results displayed on the overhead screens. "You've been diluting the drinks." Dravok perked up slightly. "Then you admit they were too strong." "Nope." Juno popped the P sound. "Been staying hydrated. Because unlike some species, we humans learned the hard way it's not the alcohol that gets you. It's the dehydration." The revelation rippled through the bar. Several patrons rushed to the drink dispensers requesting water. Others were furiously taking notes. "A human drinking secret," someone whispered in awe. "So simple," another added. "Their whole species evolved to process poisons efficiently, and they developed countermeasures." Dravok stared at the gravedigger before them, then at Juno, then back at the drink. Their scales shifted to a color I'd never seen before, somewhere between resignation and respect. "Before we finish this," Juno said kindly, "you should probably drink some water too. Trust me, your third liver will thank you tomorrow." The champion of 5 cycles, terror of the Proxima drinking circuit, looked at the human who'd outthought and outdrunk them. Then, to everyone's surprise, they laughed. "Water," they wheezed between asteroid-grinding chuckles. The secret weapon was water. "Next you'll tell me humans do this for fun." "Ever heard of something called spring break?" Juno grinned. I pushed 2 glasses of water forward before setting up the final gravedigger shots. As both competitors drank the water, I noticed the betting boards had completely malfunctioned, apparently. The odds calculating algorithms couldn't handle the paradigm shift they just witnessed. "To think," Dravok mused, "their translators still slightly glitchy. All these cycles we thought humans were soft because your planet had liquid water everywhere. But that's what made you strong. That, and the fermented fruit." Juno winked. "Now, shall we finish this properly?" The gravedigger awaited, its quantum uncertain contents swirling with possibilities. But somehow watching Juno take her position for the final round, I had a feeling the only uncertainty left was just how many records would be broken tonight. And more importantly, how many water dispensers I'd need to install in my bar by tomorrow. The galactic gravedigger pulsed ominously in its containment vessels, each glass seeming to absorb the bar's ambient light. I've served this drink exactly 3 times in my career. 2 resulted in immediate disqualification, and 1 ended with a 3-day station-wide power fluctuation. "Final round protocols in effect," I announced, my voice steady despite all 4 hands trembling slightly. "Quantum stabilizers engaged. Emergency medical unit standing by." The crowd pressed against the safety barriers, their diverse forms creating a living mosaic of anticipation. Some were still trying to place last-minute bets, though the boards had given up trying to calculate odds and now simply displayed error mathematical impossibility. A moment, Dravok raised their drinking appendage. Their scales had regained some color after the water, but their third liver's bioluminescent patches were still flashing warning patterns. "Human Juno Harker, before we consume this final challenge, I must know why enter this competition." Juno smiled, but not her usual confident grin. This was softer, almost nostalgic. "I'm a station maintenance engineer. Past 6 months I've fixed 17 different system failures caused by drunk aliens who thought they could handle human liquor. Figured it was time someone taught a friendly lesson about cross-species alcohol tolerance." "Friendly?" Dravok's translator squeaked. "You've systematically dismantled my reputation." "Nah." Juno shook her head. "I've helped you discover a new market. Think about it. Who better to teach aliens how to safely drink Earth booze than the current champion of Proxima Station?" The bar went quiet as Dravok processed this. Their scales shifted through several colors before settling on a deep, thoughtful purple. "The gravedigger," I interrupted, gesturing to the drinks that were starting to destabilize. "It must be consumed within the next 30 seconds, or it will collapse into a quantum singularity." Both competitors positioned themselves. The drink before them had stopped shifting colors and now showed only the deep, endless black of space itself. "To new business ventures," Juno raised her glass. "And to evolved poison eaters," Dravok responded, their translator finally stabilizing. 3. The crowd began stamping feet, tentacles, and various appendages. 2. The safety barriers hummed as they strengthened to maximum power. 1. Juno and Dravok locked eyes across the competition space. "Drink," Drink. So they threw back the gravediggers simultaneously. The liquid defied physics as it went down, simultaneously existing in multiple states and dimensions. The bar's gravity wavered. 3 Zephyrians lost their gaseous form momentarily. My datapad registered 17 different types of radiation. For exactly 3.6 seconds, nothing happened. Then Dravok's scales lit up like a supernova, every bioluminescent patch firing at once. Their 3rd liver indicator went from red to purple, to a color I'm pretty sure they just invented. They opened their mouth, probably to speak. But what came out instead was a perfect sphere of plasma that floated up to the ceiling and started singing ancient space shanties in 5-part harmony. Juno hiccuped, and a small temporal distortion rippled out, causing everyone in its path to experience the last 5 minutes in reverse. "Status check," I called out, fighting against the localized time dilation. "Vital signs." The medical scanner struggled to make sense of what it was seeing. Dravok's reading came up first, 79.9% of baseline. The crowd gasped, below the 80% threshold by 0.1%. Juno's readings appeared next, 91.3%. "Winner," I started to announce, but Dravok raised their appendage again. "Wait," they said, their translator cycling through 17 languages before settling on standard. "The human, Juno Harker. She mentioned business ventures." "I did." Juno nodded, seemingly unaffected by the quantum cocktail, except for a slight glow around her edges. "See, humans have been learning how to drink safely for thousands of years. We've developed techniques, traditions, safety measures. Instead of just serving Earth drinks, you could teach proper drinking etiquette to other species." Dravok's scales shifted to a perfect chromatic sequence. "You would share your species' knowledge? Better than cleaning up temporal accidents and waste recycling," Juno grinned. "Plus, I've got some great recipes for hangover cures." The crowd burst into excited chatter. Credits started changing hands again, but not for bets this time. People were already trying to sign up for future lessons. "Then I concede," Dravok announced, their voice carrying over the noise. "Not just the match, but my previous views. Humans aren't weak. You're terrifyingly well adapted." The bar erupted in cheers. The plasma sphere singing shanties was joined by a quantum harmonics choir. Someone tried to start a traditional victory celebration, but it turned out humans had traditions of their own. Now Juno stood up, only slightly wobbling. "Who wants to learn about this Earth tradition called a toast?" The next hour became a blur of cultural exchange. Juno taught the crowd how to clink glasses carefully, accounting for varying appendage strengths, while Dravok shared traditional drinking songs from their home world. 3 different species discovered they could safely enjoy human beer if they followed proper hydration protocols. I watched it all from behind my bar, all 5 eyes wide with wonder. The Nova's Edge had always been a meeting point for different species, but this was something new. Humans hadn't just won a drinking contest, they'd turned it into a peace summit. Boss Nira Kell appeared at my side, her 3rd eye finally spinning at a normal rate. "The Galactic Beverage Federation just called. They want to establish an official cross-species drinking certification program here at our bar." I looked around at my bustling establishment. Juno was teaching a group of silicon-based life forms how to play something called quarters, while Dravok took detailed notes. The temporal hiccups had mostly settled, though occasionally someone would experience their drink before they ordered it. "Well," I said, already mentally redesigning my stockroom to accommodate Earth imports, "I guess we're going to need a bigger bar." The Nova's Edge would never be the same, and neither would interstellar drinking culture, all because one human decided to teach the galaxy how to drink responsibly. A full cycle has passed since the legendary drinking contest, and the Nova's edge is barely recognizable. Gone are the days of simple intoxication challenges. Now, my bar stands as the galaxy's premier cross-species drinking academy. I had to install 14 new water dispensers. Dravok insisted. Another round of human safety training certificates today? Nirakel announces, her third eye now sporting a tiny graduation cap. She's become our head instructor for gaseous species, teaching them the fine art of alcohol vapor moderation. The bar's walls, still bearing those historic scorch marks, now display hundreds of graduation photos. Each shows a proud alien holding their certified inhuman drinking protocols badge, most of them posed next to either Juno or Dravok. Those two, against all probability, turned out to be the galaxy's most effective drinking education duo. Dravok's extensive knowledge of alien biology, combined with Juno's human drinking wisdom, created a curriculum that's become mandatory for every diplomatic mission involving Earth. Remember, Juno's voice carries from the training area where she's teaching today's class. The trick isn't drinking more, it's drinking smarter, and always tip your bartender. A Jovian gas giant raises their sensory cloud. But Instructor Morgan, what if our species doesn't have hands for holding credit chips? That's why we installed the psychic payment system, Dravok explains. Their scales now permanently tinted with proud teacher purple, though we still don't recommend using it after the 6th round of neutron shots. I polish glasses with my 4 arms, each one working at a different stage of our new sanitization protocols. The betting boards have been reprogrammed to track student progress instead of wagers, though occasionally someone still tries to bet on how many temporal hiccups the graduation ceremonies will cause. The plasma sphere from that final grave digger still floats near the ceiling, though now it only sings karaoke on weekends. We've named it Bob. Hey, Zarn. Juno approaches my bar, grinning that familiar human grin. Got something for you. She pulls out a small package. Inside, I find an ancient Earth book titled The Bartender's Guide to the Galaxy, with my name printed as the author. But I haven't written this yet. You will. She winks. Temporal hiccups have their uses. A group of silicon-based life forms at the end of the bar raise their glasses in a perfect human toast, not a single quantum fluctuation in sight. Their instructor, a reformed Dravok, beams with pride. To think, I say, all 5 of my eyes misting slightly. We used to believe humans were the galaxy's lightweights. Well, Juno laughs. We did spend a few thousand years practicing. Speaking of which, she nods toward the door. The Galactic Beverage Federation representatives float in, their ceremonial robes billowing in non-existent wind. They're here to officially recognize human drinking techniques as an protected cultural artifact worthy of preservation. Who would have thought? My little bar, now a cultural heritage site. As I watch Juno and Dravok accept the certification together, I can't help but reflect. We aliens spent centuries exploring space, developing faster than light travel, mastering quantum mechanics, and humans spent that same time figuring out how to drink fermented grain juice safely. Turns out both were equally important for galactic peace. To the Nova's edge, Juno raises her glass. No, where nobody drinks alone, and everybody drinks responsibly. The crowd joins in, hundreds of different species raising thousands of different appendages, all performing a perfect Earth toast. Even Bob, the plasma sphere, joins in, hitting a perfect high note that only shatters 3 glasses instead of the usual 12. Me. I just stand behind my bar, all 4 arms busy with their usual tasks, watching the impossible become routine, because that's what humans do. They take the impossible add alcohol, and somehow make it work, and now they're teaching the rest of us how to do it too. I should probably start writing that book. The temporal copies are starting to show some wear and tear. Just another night at the Nova's edge, where every drink tells a story, and every story leads to understanding, even if some of those stories occasionally break the laws of physics. At least, nobody's tried to recreate spring break yet.